Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryankaravavai Tejasvinavaditamastu Shavahai. Om Shanti. We finished studying the present predicament. The present predicament is lack of awareness of the intellect. Number two, even if there is some attempt made, it is not made in the right direction as to what will help the intellect to get strengthened. So two problems. One is awareness, lack of awareness about intellect. Second is what material will help to strengthen the intellect. In this, we discussed a few points. The few points that was discussed is, first one, people are unaware of the existence of the intellect is the first point. The second point is, even if somebody is talking about intellect, they are not actually talking about intellect. They are only talking about intelligence, which is erudition, scholarship, which is being well informed in one or more subjects, but that doesn't necessarily translate into the intellect, because emotions and feelings overpowers whatever knowledge and understanding a person has. The emotions and feelings of a person is so powerful that it overpowers. So the emotion and feeling overpowers, the likes and dislikes overpowers, and a person is a victim of this likes and dislikes, emotions and feelings, and intellect doesn't function at all. Or emotion and feelings, likes and dislikes, starts using intelligence to suit its demands it needs. That is the second problem. What is the second problem now? The emotions and feelings, likes and dislikes takes over. When we say emotions and feelings, likes and dislikes takes over, what it means is they start using the intelligence to fulfill its needs, fulfill its demands, and it will convince you into thinking. Emotions and feeling convinces you that you are thinking rightly. Likes and dislikes makes you to believe you are thinking rightly. That is the second problem. The present predicament is emotions and feelings, likes and dislikes makes you to believe that you are thinking rightly. How do you understand that intellect is not functioning? When someone does something which you don't like or with which you do not agree, what would you call that as? That is, emotions and feelings have taken over. Again, I repeat, when someone does something that you don't like or with which you do not agree, what happens? You will either call that person a stupid, or you will say ignorant, or malevolent, or a person of no ethics and morals and values. And you are so convinced that it is thinking that is happening, whereas there is no thinking at all. There is no thinking at all. It just didn't go with your likes and dislikes. Second, a strong background emotion that you have already colors all your perceptions. a strong background emotion like love or fear or anger, whatever be that emotion, this colors all your perceptions, meanings this dominates your thinking, which people misunderstood as intellect, which people misunderstand as intellect is function. Now we are only trying to distinguish what all people understand as intellect is functioning. We are saying, we are trying to establish that it is not that. Then what it is, what all is not that, and what is left behind is intellect. That we will come to later. Are able to follow? So, a strong background emotion colors your thinking, dominates your thinking. This coloring may be with reference to a person, this coloring may be with reference to a situation, but definitely there is a coloring. In thinking, intellect means you will not be aware of this at all. So, sorry, intelligence means you will not be aware of this at all. Intellect means you will be aware of this. This awareness is what is called objectivity. This awareness. What is this awareness? I do not like it. I may not approve of it. I have a background emotion that is overpowering it. You should be able to observe the influence of these emotions and feelings, likes and dislikes on your thinking. The ability to observe this, the instrument that observes this is called intellect. The instrument that observes the influence of your likes and dislikes, emotion, feelings upon your thinking is called buddhi, the intellect. Second predicament is that is lacking. That is the second. Sometimes you may not be having any background emotion, but the sight of it can trigger an emotion and then you will be carried away by that. Sometimes you come in with an emotion. Sometimes what happens, a initial perception can trigger an emotion. For example, you perceive an insult. Supposing if you perceive an insult, after that what happens? You perceive an insult, thereafter all your thinking gets colored by this. Yeah. இதுக்கெல்லாம் தான் group discussion, isn't it? Yajna Karma, verse number 28, what is he talking is of no relevance at all. The only relevance is what? How you perceive an insult and then thinking gets, how you perceive an insult and thinking gets carried away by that. After that, there is no thinking at all. After that, there is no intellect that is playing. You are only trying to prove your point. You are only trying to justify, you are only trying to prove. Intellect has stopped. The second predicament that he is saying is, where all emotions and feelings takes over, where all likes and dislikes takes over, and you will be thinking under the influence of that emotions and feelings, likes and dislikes, makes you to believe that you are thinking. Makes you to believe that you are thinking, for which he says that is intelligence, not, that is called intelligence and not intellect. That is the second predicament. The third predicament in thinking is what? Preoccupation. So preoccupied with the world, they have no time or inclination to understand the vital role of the intellect, nor invest time in developing it. Okay. For you to invest time, you should know the worthiness, isn't it? You will invest time only if you know it is worthy. What is worthy according to you? What is worthy according to you? Only one thing that is worthy according to you is what? Anything that can make more money is worthy. Anything that cannot fetch you money is unworthy. That's all. Your standard is. Yeah, the standard is very simple, clear. Yeah. Standard is very simple, clear. That's why when Shastra says do yajna karma, sir, dravya yajna I cannot do, sir. Other yajna I will do. Why dravya yajna I cannot do? Because my wealth decreases, the other person's wealth increases. I cannot handle decrease of my wealth. There are superior yajnas. No, what are the superior yajnas? Other yajna and all I will do. Dravya yajna, don't ask me. Anyway, it is inferior. No. Why will I do that? Srikanth. Why preoccupation with that? So preoccupied with that, that is more appealing than anything else. Fourth predicament. The existing intellect is poor. The quality of everybody is born with some amount of intellect, but the quality of it is so. Last problem. The last problem is all things you want instantly. Everything you want instantly, isn't it? Five days youth camp to my children. What will happen? Nothing will happen, isn't it? 3 years, 30 years, nothing is happening. In 5 days, good entertainment will happen. That's all. What will happen? Nothing will happen. But the mind wants instant result, and strengthening of intellect doesn't show any result at all. Therefore, building the intellect takes considerable time and effort. To aggravate the problem further, there are no visual signs of development also. So, two problems. 5A, 5B. In the fifth category, we are discussing two. So, 5A. What is 5A? Building the intellect takes considerable time and effort. 5B, no visual signs of development also. Therefore, no enthusiasm to pursue the development of intellect. This is the present predicament. Now we'll study the part the intellect plays. We study that portion.
The part the intellect plays. All through one's lifetime, the human mind needs to be monitored by a discerning intellect. The mind has a natural tendency to stray into various worldly attractions. The intellect alone has the ability to pull it back to follow the path of discretion. Just as a car moving in a highway tends to sway to either the right or the left if the driver does not use the steering wheel. The steering wheel must be employed all the time to keep the car moving straight on the road ahead. The intellect is the steering wheel of life. You need to use it at all times to remain sane and move forward to fulfill your life's mission. The vehicle has also to be provided with shock absorbers to have a smooth ride over the rough and rugged roads. so does a human being need the wisdom of Vedanta to take care of the trials and tribulations of the world, the knocks and shocks of life. Initially, you must acquire the knowledge of Vedanta which the author of the book has carefully prepared from the literature laid down by the ancient sages of India thousands of years back. Thereafter, you need to reflect upon the knowledge acquired with your intellect until you absorb it, make it your own. The knowledge then settles down as wisdom. You need that wisdom to have a peaceful and progressive life in and through the variations of the external world. It is in your interest to find out how prepared are you to meet the various challenges that confront you in life. Here is a simple example taken from real life to help you determine your present state. A person returning from a friend's dinner party realizes he has left behind his ball pen, an ordinary, inexpensive one. Would he drive back to pick up the pen? Would he even bother to phone his friend to inquire? What is the loss of a pen to him? Now, the pen is very much with him, but he finds his wristwatch missing. How do you handle that? Perhaps call his friend the next morning to find out if it is there for him to pick it up later. Imagine his pen and watch are with him, but on reaching the car park that night, his newly purchased car is missing. What would the loss of the car mean to him? Stretching it further, the pen, the watch, and the car are with him, and he drives home to find his beautiful house completely gutted, burnt to ashes. How would that affect him? Now imagine the worst. All these are intact, and he reaches his house to hear that his wife and 2 children have met with a fatal accident. What impact would the sudden death of his family have on him? Now carefully study these probabilities in one's life. The loss of a ball pen through the loss of a family, and project them on your person. Find out where exactly do you stand, from the pen to the family. At what level would you cave in, collapse? If you are disturbed at a low level, at the simplest of challenges, your personality is in poor shape. Thus, when the mind becomes agitated, it shows the lack of intellectual strength to manage any of life's challenges. You need to develop your intellect forthwith. If, on the contrary, you are able to take your greatest challenge with ease, accept even death as an inevitable end, you have then reached a high level of self-development. However, one does not expect tragedies to occur in life, though one ought to be well prepared for any such eventuality. But if a person expects adverse happenings all the time, he would be deemed a pessimist, whereas another fully prepared for the worst would be a philosopher, replete with wisdom, peaceful and progressive at all times, regardless of what situation or circumstance he meets in life.
Now the topic is the part the intellect plays. What is the part that the intellect plays? The part that the intellect plays is to ensure that the variations in life doesn't upset your equanimity. That is the part the intellect plays. Variations in life cannot be avoided. Variations in life cannot be stopped. That is part and parcel. You cannot stop the variations in life. But what can be stopped? That is the part the intellect plays, for which an example is given. What is an example that it is given? From the loss of a pen to the loss of a pen to the loss of a family. Preparation is an awareness that how it is today, it is not going to be there tomorrow. That is preparation. Again, preparation is how it is today, it is not going to be the same tomorrow. How it is the same today, the mind believes it is how it should be forever. How it is today, that's how it should be forever. The parent believes what? Children should grow and also listen to them constantly, isn't it? Either they keep listening to you and grow and don't grow at all, and if they grow, they will stop. Listen, ரெண்டுத்துல ஒண்ணுதான், isn't it? Emotions. What is emotions? Emotion is nothing but self-attention. That's all. Emotion is nothing but self-attention. Attention is upon yourself. And you are the center of the universe. And other than you, nobody exists. It's the emotion. What is emotion? Emotion is self-attention. Other than you, you are the center of the universe. And other than you, nothing exists. Nobody exists. Nothing exists. The part that the intellect plays is a preparation. What is the preparation? This is the preparation that we are talking about. This is a wonderful person, sir. I love this person so much. Why? Why? Attention is paid to you, that's all. This is a wonderful person. I have never met a person like this in my whole life. Even you can't find a person like this. Even you are also not like that. Why? Because attention is paid. Wherever attention is paid, what happens? Wherever attention is paid, what happens? Consequently, natural consequence it is. Wherever attention is paid, what happens next? Expectations increases. Well, the attention is paid, and expectation increases. and your expectation goes on increasing, and the variations of life says your expectations cannot be met, will not be met, then what happens? You collapse. This is how emotion causes collapse. Everybody's collapsed. When I say everybody means whoever is a victim of emotions is collapsed. The part the intellect plays is this. The part that the intellect plays is to be aware of the variations will be there, and you should not be affected by the variations. Number one. Number two, you don't decide the variation. You can never predict the variation. It happens. You don't decide the variations. You can't predict the variations. It happens and you have to adapt. That's all. The variations happen and you only have to adapt. But your ego, your emotions that has kept you as the center of the universe says what? Will tell you what? Why will I adapt? It is the other that has to adapt. What is ego? The part that the intellect plays is to be aware of the ego. What is ego? Ego thinks you are doing a great favor by your existence itself. The fact that you are existing itself is so valuable to the society, humanity, that everybody has to pay attention to you. That's the ego, isn't it? That's all ego is. What is ego? You think that your presence is so vital. Your presence is so important. And you are doing a very great. That's why when there is a conflict, what do they argue? What do they talk? Somebody else were in my position, they would have done something worse than this. All these arguments goes on, no, between the two. Whenever there is a fight that happens, what is the root of all that? My existence itself is a favor that I am doing to you. In return, what you should do? In return, what should you do? Keep paying attention. The part that the intellect plays is what? The variations, the fluctuations should not be affecting you. For which an example is given for preparation. What is the preparation? The preparation is the variation. What is the variation? One variation is loss. Another variation is gain. There are two variations in life. One is a loss, another is a gain. You have to be prepared for both. Otherwise, you lose yourself in a loss, you lose yourself in a gain also. You lose yourself in a loss, and you can lose yourself in some gain also, isn't it? The fellow does something, divinities help that it worked. That person starts thinking that from now on, anything he touches will turn into gold, no? The gain also, you can lose yourself. The loss also, you can lose yourself. Now, what is the part that the intellect plays? What is the part of the intellect? The gain and the loss should not be disturbing. That is the part. Gain will happen, loss will happen. Because we are acting, actions will produce. We have seen that in some other sessions. All the time we are acting, and all actions has four possibilities. What are the four possibilities? You may get exactly what you want. You may get more than what you want. You may get less than what you want. You may end up getting the opposite of what you want. But nevertheless, something will Nevertheless, something will happen. And what is the part the intellect plays? The part the intellect plays is this preparation. Part the intellect plays is this preparation. You follow? Today, that preparation is lacking. Because of this preparation that is lacking, there is an internal chaos, an internal disturbance, an internal chaos. How do you know that there is an internal chaos? When everything around that person is, the relationships are poor, the concentration levels are poor, the efficiency levels are poor, everything around that person is poor. If you understand everything around that person is poor, you know that they are affected by the variation. You follow? The mind seeks attention. And there are various ways in which the mind seeks attention. Somebody will be talking loudly sometimes. You ever observe, you will say, talk softly. Why? One way of seeking attention is to talk loud. Another way of seeking attention is what? Worst, very elementary, and we keep doing it till the end of the life. What is the elementary way of paying attention? The most elementary way of seeking attention, and which we continue right till the end of our life, is what? Sickness, health. There will not be a headache, but there will be a headache, isn't it? There will not be a stomachache, but there will be a stomachache. There will not be something, but there will be something, isn't it? When you take the person to the doctor, doctor says everything is fine. You will say what? The doctor is wrong. Then they will say all the tests will be done. Everything will say normal. You will say machine is faulty. The part the intellect plays is the awareness of how the mind is bringing itself down, how the mind drags itself down. The intellect is aware of it. Second thing that the intellect plays is wherever it sees the mind dragging itself down, it can whip itself into action. Nobody is having that intellectual strength. So victim of the mind that they can't even get up, isn't it? They can't even get up, sir. Can't even get up. Or so excited that you can't act either. So excited that you can't. Are you able to follow? So the second thing that the intellect plays is what? One is it makes you aware of the influence of the emotions and feelings in your thinking, how they color your thinking. The second thing that the intellect plays is what? Wherever it is influencing and bringing you down, it can correct. It can correct. Appada intellect is functioning. Only when it can correct, the intellect is aware. It is functioning. In order to correct, it needs to be strong. It needs to be strong. In order to correct, it needs to be strong. And do you know how intellect becomes strong? That is the part of the intellect plays. How intellect becomes strong? Lecture ketne irundha strong aiduma. Every time you say no to the mind, your intellect is becoming strong. Every time you say yes to the mind and fall, it becomes weak. Again, I repeat. How does the intellect become strong? The capacity to say no. What will happen? You ask yourself, what will happen? That is the probabilities. What will happen? What will happen? At the most, what will happen? Worst case scenario, you can start, isn't it? Start from the worst case. What is the worst case scenario? At the most, you will die. So many are dead. What happens? Life continues, and one person dying doesn't make any difference to life at all. Howsoever great that person is. Howsoever great that person is, it doesn't make any difference to life. So life moves on. So what is the preparation? How does the intellect prepare itself? How does it become strong? It becomes strong whenever it can say no to the mind. Every time it says yes, it becomes weak. Every time it can say no, it becomes strong. And if you have a weak intellect, it means what? You are saying yes. You say yes, yes. And you think you have to say yes to make the mind cooperate. See, you say yes to the mind will not cooperate. You say yes to the mind, what will happen? The mind will start dominating you. Instead of making the mind to follow you, you follow the mind. And if you start following the mind will start dominating you. How do you know that the mind is dominating you? It will not allow you to do what ought to be done. It will not allow you to do what ought to be done. Second, it will turn stubborn. It will simply turn stubborn, refusing to move, refusing to yield. How many people we see? Just the mind is so stubborn that they just don't move at all. Can't get up and do anything. Mind is so stubborn. And they ask what to do, sir. The tragedy of the whole situation is they will ask what to do. What to do? Get up. Meaning you say no to the stubbornness of the mind. You say no to the stubbornness of the mind. The part the intellect plays is in awareness and becoming strong. The preparation is the strength. What is the preparation? The variations are there, and those variations will affect, and I should understand and ensure that the variations should not affect. Again, I repeat, variations will be there, and it is bound to affect. Variations are there, and it is bound to affect, but you have a choice not to get affected. You have a choice not to get affected. That is the part the intellect plays. So, yeah, we'll read the next topic now.
Mind needs monitoring. The mind has the tendency to pick up likes and dislikes from the world. And by a constant feeding of this tendency, it develops a stockpile of likes and dislikes. These attractions and aversions turn out to be the worst offenders in your life. To crown it all, your parents, your friends, your well-wishers aggravate the problem by further humoring your likes and dislikes. This stockpile acts as a motor, driving you to what you like and avoiding what you dislike. The pursuit of your likes and avoidance of your dislikes works to your detriment. Another problem with these preferences is that the external world cannot cater to them at all times. You like summer and hate winter. You run after profits and detest losses. You crave for honor and shun dishonor. Thus, the firm likes and dislikes of a person in constant contact with the ever-changing world must necessarily create friction. A static object contacting a moving surface would naturally cause friction, abrasion. To avoid such adversity in life, a person must rise well above the undulations and fluctuations of the external world. William Wordsworth, the great English poet, has indicated the way to rise above this abrasive world and reach a state of peace and bliss. In his famous poem, The Daffodils, Wordsworth describes a person who has risen above the ups and downs of the external world. They are the fluctuations and altercations that people meet in life, such as heat and cold, profit and loss, joy and sorrow, and the host of opposites. Wordsworth poetizes the way to rise above these natural vicissitudes is by wandering lonely as a cloud. Wandering implies moving about without a place or person to return to, which speaks of one's sense of detachment. The word lonely qualifying wandering implies none other accompanying the person, again indicating a lack of attachment. A person roaming thus in a spirit of perfect detachment may be living a fruitless life, even being a menace to the society. On the contrary, the poet eulogizes him by comparing him to a cloud. A cloud gives rain which confers growth and prosperity to the world. The comparison to a cloud would therefore mean that he is an embodiment of service and sacrifice. His life being dedicated to strive for the welfare of people. Such thought and action would generate peace and joy in the world, which the poet picturizes as reveling at the sight of the golden daffodils. And towards the end he concludes how through study, contemplation and meditation one reaches the pinnacle of human perfection, merging with nature, the supreme, which he dramatizes as dancing with the daffodils. The poem. The daffodils. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. continues as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way. They stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. For oft when on my couch I lie in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. William Wordsworth.
The mind needs monitoring. By itself, the mind runs in all directions. The mind cannot control itself. The mind cannot guide itself. There are various tricks by which you can calm the mind temporarily. There are various tricks by which you can make the mind become quiet temporarily. But as soon as you stop it, the mind will go back to its original state. The various tricks that people try to calm the mind. Breathing can control the mind, no, sir. So starts breathing. So imagine right in the middle of the class, if everybody starts breathing, isn't it? Because mind is wandering. The mind is wandering, and when the mind is wandering, it needs to be brought. Now, what to do? Start breathing. Meditation technique, japa, all these can monitor the mind. No, all these, as long as you are engaged in that activity, it will be there. The moment you stop that activity, what happens? As long as you are in meditation, the mind will be calm. And you can't be in meditation 24/7. You have to get out. No. You will get out. No. Now, what happens when you get out? Bounce. It will come back. It will come back. Therefore, there are various temporary methods by which the mind can be monitored, and there is a permanent method by which mind can be monitored. So when we say mind needs monitoring, first we understand that mind is essentially, it has to be monitored, and there are temporary methods by which it can be monitored, and then there is a permanent method by which it can be monitored. The temporary methods are tricks. Keep intensely looking at the flame. You can keep looking for 3 days. It will for 3 days it will work as though your mind is under control. Fourth day, what will happen? The flame will be there. Eyes will be staring at it. Mind would have gone elsewhere, isn't it? Anything new, temporarily the mind gets. Anything new, the mind temporarily gets attracted, and it behaves as though it is cooperative. Actually, it is the newness. That's all it is. Not the mind has not. The mind has not come under your control. That mind needs monitoring. Why the mind needs monitoring? Because the mind has a tendency to pick up likes and dislikes, and the mind has a tendency to get attached. Because of these two reasons, it needs monitoring. Again, the mind has a tendency to develop likes and dislikes, and the mind has a tendency to get attached. All the so-called love relationships is nothing but attachment, he said. Why? Because why it is attachment? You are being catered to, that's all. Attention is paid, you are being catered. You say, wow, we have a very good vibe. We both have a very good vibe. The moment the attention has stopped, the good vibe becomes bad vibes, isn't it? So as long as attention is paid, the vibe will become good. The moment the moment attention is stopped, the good vibe will become the. So what is that? Why the mind needs monitoring? Two tendencies of the mind. Mahashanaihi mahapapma vidyena mihavairinam, he says in third chapter. This nature of the mind, he says, he gives beautiful adjectives. He says it is mahashanaihi, it is mahapapma. Know this to be your only enemy here. But we have so many enemies other than this enemy, isn't it? If we ask, what is the description? Who is your enemy? You will say this person is enemy, this is enemy, this is enemy. All that is set right. It will be all right. Mahashanaihi mahapapma vidyenam ihavairinam. There are so many ways in which the mind gets distracted. But all the very many ways will boil down to these two, likes and dislikes and attachment. Again, I repeat, there are so many ways in which the mind gets distracted and run towards the world, but everything will be boiling down to these two. What? Likes and dislikes and attachment. That mind that has these difficulties needs to be monitored. That mind that has these difficulties. In the third chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, he elaborates it into 5. Here he says the mind needs monitoring in relation to 1. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, he says mind needs monitoring in chapter 3 by 5, because the mind distracts itself into the 5. What are the 5? Chapter 3, we finished 10 years back. How will we remember? What chapter we are studying now only we don't remember. How can we remember what he said as the 5 things in chapter 3? He says, Ashraddha, Suya, Vichetasa, Ragadvesha. All these are the problems. All this he says is Mahashanaihi, Mahapapma, these are. Do I have to conquer one by one by one? The intellect says, you handle one, rest gets handled by itself, because it is just handling one is enough. All gets handled automatically, because it is the one that is appearing as this. And what is that one? Raga and Dvesha. It is Raga and Dvesha. There is no Vedanta without this word Raga Dvesha. And all Vedanta people wants to know is apart from this Raga Dvesha. There is no Raga, there is no Vedanta that is possible other than Raga Dvesha. No, sir, Raga Dvesha and all we'll see later. First let us handle first let us worry about our problems. Now, Raga Dvesha we'll handle later. What problems we'll handle? Because as long as the Raga Dvesha is there, it has an infinite capacity to keep producing problems after problems after problems. Raga Dvesha is that. All those who are known as well-wishers also promote it. You promote it, and the so-called well-wishers also promote it. He says your parents, your friends, your well-wishers aggravate the problem by further humoring your likes and dislikes. They promote it. What is wrong if I have a like and dislike and if I act accordingly? What is the problem in that? What is the problem of raga and dvesha? The problem of raga, dvesha is only one. You have a demand, you have an expectation that will not be met. That's all. You have a demand, you have an expectation that will not be met. And very difficult to make a person understand this. What is the other way they understand? They go through a method of a very painful method. In the Upanishad, Isavasya Upanishad, the Isavasya Upanishad calls it as a long winding path. There is the direct path, you can get it. But people don't get to the direct path. They always take to the long winding path. What is the long winding path? The long winding path of raga and dvesha. Second, difficulty with raga dvesha. Your likes and dislikes keep changing. The world is changing. So two constantly changing factors, when they relate, when they associate, what will be that? Are you able to follow? Sometimes you change, the other doesn't change. Sometimes you remain the same, the other has changed. What will happen? Sometimes both changes, three possibilities. This is why raga dvesha is deadly. Again, first probability is what? You change, the other remains the same. Sir, I want to move on, but the other is not allowing me, sir. What? You have changed, the other didn't change. One problem. Second problem is what? Sometimes you remain the same, the other has changed. The other says, I want to move on. Oh my God, betrayal, sir. Isn't it? When you want to move on, the other doesn't allow you, it is suffocation. When you remain the same and the other moves on, it is betrayal. Huh? Look at the words we use. Huh? Look at the way we see life. And what is the central point of all this? The central point of all this, your raga and dvesha. And sometimes it so happens that it will be met for a while. Sometimes that also happens. What? Your likes and dislikes will be catered to, will be met. The Yoga Vasishtha tells Rama, life is like a flooded river. Two logs of wood meet. In that flooded river, two logs of wood meet. They travel together for a while, only to be separated again. Rama. Again, beautiful example. It says life is like a flooded river. I think some of you would have seen flooded rivers, isn't it? all sorts of things float. During the real rains and a few weeks after the rains and all that, if you are in the Haridwar and Rishikesh downhill, you can see bridges getting washed away. I've seen quite a few times. The bridges are getting washed away in that. So all sorts of things float. Two logs of wood meet. They travel together for a while, only to be separated again. This understanding is what the daffodils is supposed to bring. This understanding, the poem Daffodils brings. You become detached. You become detached. Detachment means what? Detachment means what? When two logs of wood is meeting together, both wood will not tell each other, when are you going to get separated? It will not talk that language. When they are together, they are grateful to they travel together in joy, in bliss. And when they separate in joy, in bliss. Togetherness is bliss. The separation is also bliss. Why? Because the intellect understands togetherness is possible for a while and separation also will happen. Mind needs monitoring because when it gets together, it always expects that it has to be together. Raga and Dvesha. I like it. I do not like it. The most unreasonable part in a human being is likes and dislikes. And the whole life is guided by this means what? Whole life will be unreasonable only. Are you able to follow? Again, I repeat. The most unreasonable part in a human being's life is this likes and dislikes. And if you are guided by likes and dislikes, what will be your life? What will be your life? Unreasonable. Everything around you will be unreasonable. Everything around you will be unreasonable. Everything about you will be unreasonable. You will be a victim. To avoid such adversity in life, a person must rise well above these fluctuations. A person must rise well above these fluctuations. It creates unreasonable means what? Unreasonable means expectations. Unreasonable expectations, sir. If you are reasonable expectations are allowed. If you are reasonable, there will not be an expectation. If you are having an expectation, it is unreasonable. As simple as that. Take it or leave it. This is the reality of life. Mind doesn't live in the reality. It lives in its own hallucinations. Mind doesn't live in the reality. Mind wants to live in its own dreams. Mind wants to live in its own hallucinations. And it wants its hallucinations to become real. Again, the mind wants its hallucinations to become real, and it can never live in the reality. And it can never live in the reality. And they come and ask, what to do now? What to do now? Nothing can be done. Just buy time. Say something and keep buying time. Say something and keep buying time. After a few months, they will stop coming to you only. That's the only way you can save yourself. Yeah. Say something and buy time. 3 times you say something, it won't do nothing. 4th time they will stop Over time, they will stop coming to you. What else can you do? The likes and dislikes is the most unreasonable part. How do you say that? How do you say that? Take a simple example. Two people meet and they fall in love with each other. Never ask this question. Never ask this question, why? Or whatever answer they give is not the real answer. That's why when two people meet and they fall in love, one question that you should not ask is what? One question you should not ask is what? Why? Why this person? அந்த கேள்வி பிரயோஜனமே கிடையாது அந்த கேள்வி மாதிரி. Why? Because very, very lovely, affectionate person. Suppose no, I have another 100 affectionate, loving person. What happens? No, sir, but not like that. This is unique. This is different. You still pester the question. You still go asking the same question. The last thing they will say is what? The last thing they will say is, forget it. I just like it. That's all. I just like. Similarly, dislike also. Similarly, dislike also, isn't it? Why you like something has no meaning. Why you don't like something also has no meaning. And yet, the whole life is led by these likes and dislikes. Where intellect is needed is what? Your likes and dislikes will look very meaningful to you. That's where intellect is needed. Able to follow? Again, I repeat. Your likes and dislikes will appear very meaningful to you, whereas others' likes and dislikes always look very silly and shallow. Have you ever observed that also? When you look at the others' likes and dislikes, it will appear very silly, very shallow. But your likes and dislikes it will always appear very, very meaningful to you. Why? There's no reason to it. This is the mind. And this mind needs to be monitored. The very definition of the human being in Sanskrit is called Manushya. The very definition of the human species in Sanskrit is called Manushya. And Manushya comes from the root Manas. Manas means the mind. So who is the human being? While all other species also lives, they don't live by mind. இது அதனால தான் உங்களுக்கு மட்டும் மனுஷன் ஒரு ஸ்பெஷல் கேட்டகரி, isn't it? Plant, animal, humans. See, there are something that is common to all the three. No. Then what is the difference between all other species and this species? They are called Manushya, they are called. Why? Because these are the species that live through the mind. It is the mind that is so dominant in them. It is the mind that is so powerful in them. When the lion is not hungry, having had a meal and it is lying down, and the lion is not hungry, if the dog barks, you know what the lion will do? What the lion will do? You know? It will simply get up and move away. Not that it got afraid of the dog's barking. You understand? There is no hatred. There is no animosity. Who are you? I am the king. How can you bark at me? I will punish you. The king with the lion will not do all that because there is no mind. Are you able to understand the difference? It has no mind. Therefore, it will simply get up and move. When the same lion is hungry and ready for a hunt, what happens? The entire thing will run away. You follow what I'm saying? It goes by the It goes by the demand of it and just be done with it and it's okay. There's no mind that continues later. In the case of a human being, when we say mind, there is no, when we say they don't have a mind, what do we mean when we say they don't have a mind? Krodha, Lobha, Mada, Matsarya, Bhaya, Dvesha, all this it don't have. A human being has this. This mind has to be monitored. Are you able to follow now? They also have feelings. They also have emotions. They also do everything. But one thing that happens is what? They know when to get in and they know when to get out. Nature guides them into getting in. The same nature takes them out also. In the case of a human being, like that Abhimanyu, in Chakravyuha, they say, we know only to get in and we don't know how to get out. Why we don't know how to get out? Arjuna asked Krishna, when Abhimanyu knew how to get in, how come he didn't know how to get out? Krishna said, see, what happened was, Arjuna was talking to his wife about the Chakravyuha methodology, how to get in and how to get out. When Arjuna was talking about how to get in, Abhimanyu was awake, he heard it. When Arjuna spoke about how to get out, what happened? He fell off to sleep. So he knew how to get in and he lost the knowledge of how to get out. How to get out? The 3 yogas, the daffodils, etc. How to get out now? The 3 yogas. Karma, Bhakti, Jnana, the poem Daffodils, etc. talks about how to get out. Now the topic is mind needs monitoring. Why the mind needs monitoring? Because in the case of the other species, there is emotions, there is feelings, but nature interferes and disconnects. In the case of a human being, there is no nature interfering and disconnecting. One has to do it by oneself. Other species, nature disconnects. No problems it has. In the case of a human being, you have to disconnect. When you have to disconnect means using what? You can't use body to disconnect because body itself is gross and mind is subtle. So you can't use any bodily techniques to monitor the mind. Now, mind cannot monitor itself. Mind cannot guide itself. Then what? There is the third instrument, the buddhi, the intellect. It is that buddhi, that intellect, that monitors the mind. So all aspects of the mind put together in one thing is what? Likes and dislikes. Always wanting what I like, always not wanting what I don't like. What is wrong in that? It takes away your consistency. You become like a feather in the summer breeze because likes and dislikes keep changing. When they change, obviously you also will change. So you'll be moving from like feather in the summer breeze, from one to the other, to the other, to the other, to the other. You'll be moving. A wandering life without achieving anything purposeful. So they live a whole life and they look back and ask, what have I achieved? They live one whole life and they look back and ask, what have I achieved? They regret and say, oh my God, I wasted. What made them to feel that they wasted? The wandering likes and dislikes made them to keep changing. Efforts are in vain. Okay, not only they change, the world is also changing. That's why the mind needs monitoring. Remember the three possibilities. You understand why mind needs monitoring. Why the mind needs monitoring? Sometimes you change, the other doesn't change. When you have changed and the other didn't change, what would you call it as? You have changed, the other didn't change. What would you call it as? Suffocation, sir. Vedanta is correct, sir. People are also attached. Suffocation, sir. Are you able to follow? Second possibility. What is the second possibility? You didn't change, the other has changed. What would you call it as? That's where you say betrayal, isn't it? How much I have done for this person, sir. How much of sacrifices I have made. What all I have done for this person. See what that person has done? Just like that. Dropped me and went away. Huh? The third possibility is what? Both changes. And in this constant changing flux, what happens to the mind that is not monitored? It becomes weak. What is weakness? Weakness means vulnerability. Vulnerable, susceptible to what? Vulnerable, susceptible to pain and sorrow and suffering. Therefore, that mind that is vulnerable to pain, sorrow, suffering needs to be monitored. And when it is monitored, what happens? You are no more vulnerable. How do you understand that you are no more vulnerable? The poem Daffodils explains that. I'm not going detail into the poem Daffodils because we have studied it any number of times. But to quickly say what he's talking about this daffodils is the mind that needs monitoring. How this person has risen above the daffodils gives a method. What is the method? The first method is the methodology of action. The methodology of action, technically called as karma yoga. So cloud, wandering lonely as a cloud implies what? The person is living life in the spirit of karma yoga. Lonely indicates no specific attachment. Please understand that. A love towards all, but no specific attachment. Likes and dislikes is what? Specific love to one and hatred to the rest. Specific love to one and hatred to the rest is called attachment. Here, detachment means what? There is no specific attachment to one, but loving all. The cloud gives rain. In that rain, it gives growth and prosperity. Growth and prosperity is given. It gives itself away. He is an embodiment of service and sacrifice. The cloud is an embodiment of service and sacrifice, wandering lonely as a cloud, constantly striving for the welfare of others. Such thought and action would immediately generate peace. Such thought and such action would instantly generate peace. That peace is used for contemplation, deeper study, reflection, contemplation. So first you generate peace. And that peace is used for what? For contemplation, meditation, merging with the supreme reality, which he dramatizes as saying, becoming one with the daffodils. So, wandering lonely started with wandering lonely as a cloud, and where did he end up? Becoming one with the daffodils. The way to monitor the mind is by the yogas, by the karma yoga, by the bhakti yoga, all that we are going to study in the other textbook later. This book is not designed to talk about what is karma, bhakti and all that. Here it is only said what? Attachment is the problem. Which book are we studying? Fall of Human Intellect, Holocaust of Attachment? Anshu, what text are we reading?
Holocaust now and Fall of Intellect on Wednesday.
Just ask what are we studying today? What are we studying Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday? Adallam kekkala, isn't it? I didn't ask her for a detailed lecture. I just said, what is the book we are studying now? Anshu, what is the book we are studying now?
Holocaust of Attachment.
That's all. Because in every text it looks like the same talk only. We are wondering what is. Here, the Karma Bhakti Jnana Yogas are indicated. The purpose of the text is what? To talk about what attachment is. The intellect that understands the attachment gets detached. That's all. So much about the mind has to be spoken. When so much about the mind has been spoken, and when so much about the mind that has been spoken, you are sitting and listening, which instrument is doing this work? It is the intellect. That's why all the discussions about the mind is done by the instrument, buddhi, the intellect. And then the final state. What is the final state? Becoming one with the daffodils. Becoming one with the daffodils and all is not the theme here, but still it is indicated. But the theme here is what? The mind needs monitoring because it is getting attached. And what does attachment means? Self-attention. What does attachment means? Self-attention. Attention seeking. Always attention is upon yourself. This is called attachment. Mind is that which gets attached, and this mind needs to be monitored. When it is monitored, what happens? The mind starts behaving itself rightly. The well-behaved mind is the greatest asset. The ungoverned mind is the destructive element. That's why he says, if you know how to manage your mind, it becomes the greatest asset. If you do not know how to manage it, it destroys. So per se, mind is not destructive or beneficial. It is guided or unguided. That's all. Per se, it's a wonderful thing. That wonderful thing is so destroying because it goes unguided. The same thing is beneficial if it is guided. Therefore, the topic, mind needs monitoring. Next topic is the crux of the entire book. The crux, the theme of the entire book is the next topic. The mind wreaks havoc, and various levels of havoc it will be discussed. Mind wreaks havoc by getting attached. The mind wreaks havoc by getting attached, and it will tell you how the various aspects of life is there, and you are getting attached to that, and it is wreaking havoc. the topic mind wreaks havoc. We'll continue with in the next session. Thank you.